The decline and fall of the Western Roman Empire was not the result of a single event, but rather the outcome of centuries of gradual erosion caused by a combination of political instability, economic weakness, military defeats, and social transformation. At its peak during the 1st and 2nd centuries, Rome dominated the Mediterranean world with a strong centralized government, a professional army, and a thriving economy. But even during this golden age, signs of strain were present. The empire's vastness made it difficult to govern effectively, and succession to the throne was rarely stable, often decided by force or conspiracy rather than by orderly rule. The 3rd century was especially disastrous, marked by the so-called crisis of the 3rd century, when Rome experienced a near collapse due to civil wars, invasions, economic breakdown, and even devastating epidemics. In less than 50 years, dozens of emperors rose and fell, many of them military usurpers supported by their legions, which undermined any sense of continuity. Reforms introduced by Diocletian and Constantine temporarily stabilized the empire. Diocletian reorganized the administration, divided the empire into East and West for more effective control, and created the Tetrarchy, while Constantine founded a new capital at Byzantium, renamed Constantinople, which would later prove more secure and prosperous than Rome itself. Yet these reforms also deepened the differences between the wealthier East and the weaker West, leaving the Western provinces with fewer resources to face future crises. Economically, the Western Empire suffered from a long decline. Agriculture, the backbone of Roman wealth, struggled due to overworked land, declining productivity, and heavy taxation. Small farmers were driven into debt or forced to abandon their lands, while large estates grew in power, weakening central control. The reliance on slaves and lack of technological innovation prevented progress, and inflation caused by the debasement of currency eroded confidence in Roman money. The state's heavy financial burdens, especially the need to maintain large armies and the costly bureaucracy, only increased the pressure on citizens, many of whom lost faith in imperial authority. Social cohesion weakened as people sought protection from local magnates rather than from the distant emperor, foreshadowing the feudal structures of the Middle Ages. Militarily, the empire faced mounting challenges. Its borders, stretching thousands of kilometers, required constant defense. But the Roman army was no longer the disciplined force it had once been. Increasingly, Rome depended on foreign mercenaries and barbarian foederati to fight its wars, people such as the Goths, Franks, and Vandals, who were often settled inside the empire as allies, but who at times turned against their hosts. The arrival of the Huns in the 4th century unleashed a chain reaction of migrations as displaced tribes pressed into Roman territory. The Battle of Adrianople in 378, where the Goths annihilated a Roman army and killed the Emperor Valens, demonstrated Rome's vulnerability and shattered the myth of its invincibility. During the 5th century, the empire steadily lost territory and prestige. In 410, Rome itself was sacked for the first time in 800 years by Alaric and his Visigoths, an event that shocked the ancient world and symbolized Rome's decline. The Vandals crossed into North Africa, seizing its fertile lands and rich trade routes, which deprived the empire of one of its most vital provinces. In 455, Rome was sacked again by the Vandals, further humiliating the once great city. Meanwhile, Germanic leaders such as the Franks in Gaul and the Visigoths in Hispania established independent kingdoms, while the imperial government in Ravenna clung desperately to diminishing power. The Western emperors were often puppets controlled by powerful generals such as Stilicho, Aetius, or Ricimer, who themselves struggled to maintain unity against constant invasions. Even when figures like Aetius won temporary victories, such as against Attila the Hun at the Battle of the Catalunian Plains in 451, these successes were fleeting. By the mid-5th century, the empire was little more than a name, with real authority resting in the hands of barbarian leaders. The final blow came in 476, when the Germanic chieftain Odoacer deposed the last emperor, the young Romulus Augustus, and declared himself ruler of Italy. Though the Eastern Emperor in Constantinople still claimed theoretical authority, the Western Empire had ceased to exist as a political entity. The fall of the Western Roman Empire was not a sudden collapse, but rather a long transformation that gradually shifted power from centralized Roman rule to decentralized barbarian kingdoms. Nevertheless, Roman culture, law, language, and institutions survived within these new states and continued to shape Europe for centuries. The fall marked the end of antiquity and the beginning of the Middle Ages, a period in which the memory of Rome would serve as both an inspiration and a model for future empires.